Welcome back, everybody, to another WV Guns and Goats video. And it's going to be a pretty good one here if you're interested in budget rimfire silencers, because this is the Hush Point 22 by High Point Firearms. You may have seen this silencer in my tabletop video where I gave you a closer look at it and the first couple shots out of the box. But in that video, I said I wanted to bring it out here and try it on some different firearms and see how it sounds, both rifles and pistols, and with different types of 22 ammo through those guns. Hold on a minute. Are you stuck? The grass isn't greener on this side, little one.
Bye, have a great time.
Well, it seems like little goats are always trying to get themselves into some kind of trouble. And I'm sure she feels a lot better now that she's not stuck in the fence. And now I can get back to telling you what we're going to do in this video. Well, we've got a couple different firearms, some rifles and pistols out here to put the Hush Point on and see how it sounds. You're going to hear it unsuppressed first and then suppressed with the high velocity rounds. And then you'll hear it unsuppressed again and suppressed with the standard velocity or the subsonic rounds. After we get done going through all the firearms we have the first time, I'm going to go ahead and move the microphone behind me at an angle to kind of simulate what a bystander would hear if they were observing you shooting with the silencer on your firearm. I'm trying to give you a pretty good representation of how this can sounds for a budget 22 rimfire can. Now, I don't have all the fancy sound meters or any of that stuff that can accurately measure the decibel rating of this can, because that stuff is really expensive. It tends to start with, when you're looking for the prices, contact a salesperson for a quote so you know it's gonna be really expensive. But hopefully this video gives you an idea of how this sounds for a budget rimfire can. Now, I will not be shooting any of the steel plates back there so that you don't have that ping of the steel target getting in the way of hearing the performance of the silencer. Now, before we hit the range, if you're not a herd member yet, how about you go ahead and headbutt that subscribe button. Now, don't make too much fun of my pink 22 right here. They were on sale pretty cheap. Let's start with it. So, of course, we still had that supersonic crackdown range, but right here at the muzzle, any of that muzzle blast completely eliminated. Really quiet with those standard velocity rounds out of this little bolt action here. And just for fun, since nothing else will cycle these, CCI CB caps in the Ruger. K22, hypervelocity, and bulk. Well, even with the high velocity rounds, shooting without hearing protection here with the Hush Point 22 in here, it was doing its job, containing all that muzzle blast, and the most noise was coming from the supersonic crack downrange of those rounds. When we had the slower stuff, the standard velocity stuff in here, it quieted it down a good bit, and it was very, very pleasant to my ears, even pleasant with the high velocity rounds. It wasn't hurting my ears. And then with the CB rounds out of that rifle, it was just Hollywood quiet. I just heard the rifle click and then I heard it hit downrange. Let's go ahead and move that microphone behind us about 6 feet away to simulate a bystander. Guys, you know what? Just for kicks one time, I know it's not rated for this. TX22, we got the Ferrotech weight on here and a Freedom Finger really fast trigger in this. And something cool you can do with 22 cans is run them wet, where you pour some water into the can and it's going to make some of your shots a lot quieter. This is that Federal bulk ammo. Let's see how it sounds. Running this can wet again, I had 5 rounds of the CCI quiet semi-auto. Let's hear it now. How about wet on the TX22? Oh, that was quiet. For a comparison, we have a fancier, more expensive anechoic 22 silencer right here. And we're gonna compare the Hush Point 22 to this one to see how it sounds with some CCI standard velocity. Now for the Hush Point 22. First round pop was a little bit louder on the Hush Point. So what are my final thoughts on the Hush Point 22? Well, for a budget can, I think the price to performance ratio on the silencer is pretty good. It sounded quiet enough when we shot subsonic rounds through it. Of course, that's what you're going to want to shoot through silencers anyway to get the most effectiveness out of them. However, when we shot supersonic rounds, it still performed really well. And I think that what is going to make this one of the better options on the market, and what this can has on some of these other companies that you see now or you're going to see in the next couple years because the $200 stamp fee has been eliminated, is longevity. High Point Firearms, having been around since the 80s and pretty much still making the same products they did back then, has a long history of being in business. You see a lot of companies come, you see a lot of companies go in the silencer world, and I'm sure that's a trend that's never going to change. But with this one, you have a company that stands behind it, and you don't have to worry about that company disappearing and then having a silencer that is unsupported. And you just have to worry every time you take it out that you're not going to have an issue like a baffle strike or a tube strike or something that destroys the silencer. And if it does happen on this one, you have a company you can send it to and get it taken care of. Also, I think when it comes to looking through that budget lens at this, the guy who's always thought about a rimfire silencer, but before when there was a $200 tax stamp And now that that's gone, I really think they should have gotten rid of the entire process. But now that that's gone, he's going to start looking at silencers again. And before he'd take that $200 tax stamp price and put it on top of the silencer price and then say, hey, that's too expensive for me for a rimfire silencer. However, the guy still thinks he wants one, and he's going to start looking at something like this silencer here. Now, because he has no experience with silencers, he doesn't know what the quietest silencer on the market is, what the fanciest silencer on the market is. He knows what he's heard that his buddy has or what a guy at the range has let him shoot. And if he buys this silencer, I think the performance is good enough to impress him, especially with some things like the CB caps that you heard me shoot earlier, and even just standard CCI, standard velocity stuff. I think he's going to be happy enough with that performance that he won't be upset at spending the money on the silencer and going through the process. Sure, he could be at the range and hear his buddy's silencer that's quieter than this, or somebody's silencer that's quieter or fancier than this. But then he asks the guy, hey, how much did that cost? And the guy's like, well, it was 500-600 bucks. And then he starts thinking about it, listen to that guy shooting his silencer some more. And he thinks about the performance of his silencer and how it's good enough for that guy because he's just not one of these people online who's digging deep into the silencer world, trying to get every decibel out of his silencer. He just wants that suppressed shooting experience. And I think this can will provide that to a large majority of first-time NFA buyers. And heck, if that guy buys this can, that's one more silencer out there in common use. And in fact, once he buys one, well, he might start looking at more. In fact, that's what happened to me once I shot suppress the first time. I started looking at more silencers and acquiring more of them. So I really do think that the High Point Hush Point 22 has a good place in the market and is one of the better budget 22 silencer options. But let me know your guys' thoughts down in the comments section. I want to hear from the herd members out there. And this has been another WV Guns and Goats video. And as always, if you're not out there having fun shooting, well, what are you doing?